Well, we've covered 25% of the amino acids so far, so I think it's good to do a summary of what we've seen so far. The top five amino acids make up roughly 40% of all amino acids you'd see in proteins. So we covered leucine, alanine, serine, glycine, and valine. Four of those are nonpolar, aliphatic, hydrophobic, amino acids. Actually, glycine is not really hydrophobic. You can see here with this hydropathy index, the higher positive numbers are hydrophobic. So leucine, hydrophobic, valine, hydrophobic. Alanine is hydrophobic, but not quite as drastic. And glycine is what we talked about before with glycine was it kind of fits into any environment. It's non-polar, but it does well in hydrophobic and hydrophilic environments. So I'm going to just draw kind of how you get between the amino acids that we've covered, just kind of migrating between them. So let me just draw the kind of the base of all amino acids real quick. Okay, so to start with, we would have glycine. Glycine with just a hydrogen side chain. And since it's symmetric, the left-handed and right-handed glycines are the same molecule. Then you have alanine if you were to add a methyl group. Let me just stick with the hydrocarbon side chains, hydrophobic molecules to start with. So if you were to just branch off right away as a V, you'd have valine. And if you were to stretch out one more branch before you create the V, you'd have leucine. Just going back to alanine, if you add in hydroxyl group, you're going to have serine. I wrote a short Python script here, and it's not the best code. It's kind of hard-coded to serve a purpose. But it just kind of gives you an example of what we would see in a protein. When you run the code, it prints out this list of 20 amino acids, and it puts an X for ones we haven't covered so far. And it weights them by the ones we have covered. It's weighted by abundance. So leucine will be 9.68% of these letters over the long haul. Alanine, 8.76%. And I can go down the list, but I'll talk about this more later. Amino acid sequences aren't random. There's selection going on, and knowing the previous amino acid gives you some insight into what's more likely to be the next amino acid. For instance, we saw that glycine sometimes follows proline. So on the subject of likelihood of amino acid, I didn't bring this up before, but the genetic code is the sequence of nucleotides that are needed to select the amino acid when you're building a protein. So on the genetic code page on Wikipedia, this is the chart I like to go to. It's showing mutations, but it's also the mutations are kind of on top of the actual genetic code. So you can see, like up here, leucine has 6 different possible codes that can choose leucine. Valine has 4 codes here. Glycine, 4 codes down here. Serine has 2 codes here and 4 codes up here. I don't know which one I missed. Here's alanine, if that's the one I was forgetting. So looking at this table, you can kind of choose, we have 5 amino acids that we've covered, so you can kind of find them in this chart here, and you can add up all the numbers of, you can see that leucine takes up 6, and glycine takes up 4, and you can just add those up to come up with a total of, our 5 amino acids take up, the total is actually 24. So our 5 amino acids take up 24 slots out of 64 possible slots in this genetic code. So this is just a calculator, and I've added up all the percentages that we've seen so far from the abundance of the amino acids. So, maybe I'm a little redundant here, but 9.68% is leucine, so 9.68% for leucine. Adding up the top 5 that we've covered, you get 39.34% of amino acids in proteins will be one of those 5. So then, like I was saying with the genetic code, I'm not going to say exactly which ones are which, but 2 of them had 6 different codes, and the other 3 had 4 different codes. So that gives you a total of 24 different codes out of 64. But 3 of those 64 codes are for stop codes. I didn't point that out here, but these 3 codes up here just stop the chain of amino acids. So 24 codes out of 61 possible codes gives you kind of, just based on the genetic code, how likely we would have one of those 5 amino acids. So I'll just multiply this by 100 to make it a percent, and you can see 39.34% of random nucleotide sequences end up being one of our amino acids. And if you compare that 39.34% with the 39.34% from adding up the abundances, they are essentially the same, to the precision that we've seen the numbers in the table. And I think this is just a coincidence. There's a correlation between the numbers because over evolutionary time, the genetic code kind of adapted to be, these are the amino acids that we want whenever we get a random sequence of 3 nucleotides. And that kind of correlates with this table here. But they're also independent calculations. So the abundance here is based on 5,000 proteins from a database and has nothing to do directly with the genetic code. It's just a interesting coincidence that they're almost exactly the same. So that's basically everything I want to say about the summary, and maybe it's more new information than the actual summary. But if you go back to any of the specific amino acids that we've covered, they'll actually list out the amino acid nucleotide codons, the codons, which are 3 nucleotides, to determine the amino acid. Didn't explain that very well, but you can see here leucine. These are the 6 codons that will give you leucine. I'll talk more about that, the nucleotides in the nucleotide playlist. But just to give you a quick introduction, but also tie it into the percent abundance that we've seen before.